I've driven the same route home for years. Late at night, after long shifts at work, I take the same highway exit, the same back roads, every time. I'm a creature of habit, I guess. But one night, about 2 weeks ago, I pulled into a gas station I'd never seen before. It was strange because I know that road like the back of my hand. It's the kind of area where gas stations are scarce, especially one that looked as old as this one. I should have noticed it before. It was sitting right off the main road, a dim neon sign flickering open above the entrance. The building itself looked run down like it had been there forever. But I was tired, and my tank was running low, so I figured I'd stop in. The moment I stepped out of my car, I knew something was off. There was this stillness. The air was thick, like the night had stopped moving. No wind, no crickets, nothing. The lights in the parking lot were dim, casting long shadows across the pavement, and the gas pumps looked ancient, rusted, with faded numbers barely visible on the dials. But the strangest part was that there were no other cars. The place was completely empty. I told myself it was just late. Maybe this place didn't get much business at night. So I locked my car and walked toward the store. The door opened with a chime, and that's when the weirdness really started. Inside, it felt like I'd walked into another time. The store was dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights, casting an unnatural glow over everything. The shelves were lined with products that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. Canned goods with labels that had faded to the point where you could barely read them. Bags of chips with logos I hadn't seen since I was a kid. Even the candy bars looked old, like they'd been sitting there for decades. But I wasn't in the mood to think too much about it. I was tired, and I just wanted to grab a drink and a snack and get back on the road. I made my way to the coolers at the back of the store, but the further I walked, the more unsettled I felt. There was this smell, stale, like something that had been locked away for too long. And the aisles, they seemed wrong. It was hard to explain, but they felt longer than they should have been. Like the store was stretching itself out the deeper I went. I grabbed a soda from the cooler and headed to the front. That's when I noticed the cashier. He was standing behind the counter, staring straight ahead. He didn't move when I approached, didn't say a word, just stood there, completely still with this blank expression on his face. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes, they didn't blink. Not once. "Hey, how's it going?" I asked, trying to break the tension. No response. I set my drink and a bag of chips on the counter, hoping he'd snap out of it and ring me up. But he just stood there, staring past me, like he didn't even see me. I was about to say something else when I noticed the clock on the wall behind him. It hadn't moved. The second hand was stuck, frozen in place. I checked my phone, thinking maybe I'd lost track of time, but my phone wasn't showing anything either, just a blank screen. Now I was really starting to feel uneasy. The store felt wrong, too quiet, too still. It was like I'd walked into a place that was pretending to be a gas station, but something was missing, something vital. I turned back toward the exit, and that's when I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. The door was further away than it had been when I came in. At first, I thought I was just imagining it. But the more I looked, the more I realized that the entire store seemed to have shifted. The aisles were longer, the shelves taller, and the door was so far away that it looked like it was at the end of a tunnel. I started walking toward it, but with every step, the door seemed to get further away. The aisles stretched out, bending at odd angles, and I could feel my pulse quickening. My footsteps echoed unnaturally, like I was walking through a cavern instead of a store. I picked up the pace, panic setting in. The exit was right there, but no matter how fast I walked, I couldn't get any closer. Then I heard it. A faint rustling sound, like something moving between the shelves. I stopped and listened, but the sound seemed to come from all around me, as if the store itself was alive, shifting and creaking. I glanced over my shoulder, and that's when I saw it. A figure. It was standing at the far end of one of the aisles, just barely visible in the dim light. It was too far away to make out any details, but I could see its outline, a person, or at least something shaped like one, standing completely still, watching me. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Hello," I called out, my voice shaky. No response. The figure didn't move. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure was still there, still watching, but now it was closer. I hadn't seen it move, but it was definitely closer than before. I turned and bolted toward the door. But as I ran, the aisles seemed to close in on me. The shelves stretched higher and higher, towering above me, and the exit was nowhere to be found. I was trapped, running in circles through a store that shouldn't exist with no way out. That's when the lights went out. Everything was plunged into darkness, except for the faint glow of the neon sign outside. I stumbled through the dark, my hands brushing against cold metal shelves, trying to find my way. But the store felt like it was shifting, moving around me, leading me deeper into its maze. Then in the darkness, I felt something brush against my arm. I froze, too scared to move. The air was thick, and I could feel my breath catching in my throat. Whatever had touched me was close, too close. I slowly turned my head, and there, standing inches away from me, was the figure. Its face was a blur, like it didn't belong in this world. Its body was twisted, wrong, as if it had been pulled out of reality and thrown back together in the wrong way. Its eyes, if they were eyes, were hollow, empty, staring right through me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the shelves behind me. The figure didn't follow, but it didn't need to. I could feel its presence everywhere, like it was watching me from every corner of the store. I needed to get out. I ran blindly through the aisles, my hands outstretched, searching for the door. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't find it. The walls were closing in, the shelves bending and warping, and the rustling sound was growing louder, closer, as if the store itself was alive, shifting around me. Then I saw it, the clock. The same clock that had been frozen when I walked in, still stuck at the same time. It was hanging on the wall just above the door I'd been looking for. But something was wrong. The clock was melting. The second hand was dripping, the numbers warping and stretching like they were made of wax. And the door, it was no longer a door, just a black void, a gaping hole that seemed to lead into nothingness. I didn't care. I ran toward it, desperate to escape. The figure was behind me now. I could feel it, its cold breath on the back of my neck, its twisted limbs reaching for me. I lunged for the door, throwing myself into the black void, and then everything went silent. I blinked, disoriented. I was standing outside in the parking lot. The gas station was gone. I looked around, confused. My car was still there, parked where I'd left it. The road was quiet, the night still. But the gas station, it was gone. There was no sign of it, no building, no neon sign, just an empty lot where it should have been. I got in my car and drove away, my hands shaking. I don't know what happened that night or where I really was. But I know one thing. I'll never drive that road again, because whatever that gas station was, it wasn't meant to be there, and neither was I.